What is up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of our NBA DFS DraftKings Picks videos, this time for Wednesday, December 22nd. I'm your host, Justin Bales, joined by Spike. We have a reasonable 6-game slate. There's a lot going on, a lot we need to go over. Doesn't look like games are going to keep being postponed at this point, just based on Adam Silver's comments. They're not planning to postpone any, or I guess they're not planning to stop play. They could continue to postpone games, but that seems like they're trying to get away from that by signing more guys. We kind of talked about this last night. Before we get into all of that, Spike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for asking. These injuries and all these people being signed are just absolutely wild. So, it's going to create a lot of value and a lot of ups and downs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a ridiculous amount going on. Before we get into all that good stuff, if you enjoy the video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. You can turn on the notifications by clicking the little bell. That will send you a notification every time we post a video so you don't miss anything. On top of that, go ahead and comment anything that you have, whether it be whether you absolutely just love this podcast that we just did, anything of that sort, or if you have any questions about any players that we didn't talk about, because we obviously will not be going over every single player that we'd be willing to use on the slate. Spike and I will be in the comments throughout the day to answer any questions that you have. All of our content can be found at dfskarma.com. We have free content. We have premium. You can go to dfskarma.com/pricing to get our core plays package, which gets you all of our premium content, projections, premium Discord channel. You get the premium literal articles that we write out that are premium, and then obviously our core plays as well. I think that about does it. Chatdfs.com will get you into our free Discord, where we're kind of breaking down the slate throughout the day, going over injury news, all that good stuff. But speaking of which, time to get into injury news for tonight. This is going to be a hot minute. There is just a ridiculous amount of stuff. So bear with me while I go over all of this. For Orlando, it looks like Markelle Fultz, Terrence Ross, RJ Hampton, Etuan Moore, Mo Bamba, Mo Wagner, Michael Carter-Williams, all ruled out. Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr., both questionable. On the other side, you have Danilo Gallinari, Clint Capella, and Trae Young, all ruled out. Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot is questionable at the moment. Bogdan Bogdanovic, probable. Denzel Valentine, Evan Mobley, Lamar Stevens, Jarrett Allen, Dylan Windler, Ed Davis, RJ Nebhart, Isaac Okoro, all ruled out for Cleveland. On the opposite side, Al Horford, Sam Hauser, Juan Hernan-Gomez, Josh Richardson, Grant Williams, Broderick Thomas, and Jabari Parker, all ruled out for Boston. Robert Williams is officially off the injury report, so he should be playing in this game. Toronto, another team dealing with quite a bit of stuff in this. Justin Champagne, David Johnson, Scotty Barnes, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Malachi Flynn, Precious Achiuwa, and Danilo Banton, and Gary Trent Jr., all ruled out. Kem Birch, questionable. Chicago's in kind of a weird spot right now. So for the time being, Derek Jones Jr., Devin Dotson, Alex Caruso all have been ruled out. Zach LaVine, Elise Johnson, Matt Thomas, and Ayo Dosunmu are all doubtful. And then Troy Brown Jr. is questionable tonight. JaMychal Green, Aaron Gordon, both questionable for Denver. On the opposite side, Mike Muscala has been ruled out. Trey Mann is questionable for Oklahoma City. Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green both ruled out for Houston. Christian Wood is questionable, and it is of note that they said that Eric Gordon will start playing back-to-backs if need be. For Milwaukee, you still have Bobby Portis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Dante DiVincenzo all out. Meanwhile, Wesley Matthews, Rodney Hood, and most importantly, Chris Middleton have all been taken off of the injury report, and they will play. Moving to LA, Sacramento, Isaiah Hartenstein, Marcus Morris, both ruled out for the Clippers. Paul George is off the injury report. Then on the opposite side, De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, Terrence Davis, Lewis King, Marvin Bagley, and Alex Len all ruled out. Meanwhile, Rashawn Holmes is questionable once again. That is all of the injury news. A ton to go over. I was actually going to throw in some of the players that teams are signing, because obviously they're signing more and more guys to just 10-day deals. They deal with the COVID issues. The other guys come in, they play, maybe a couple of games, somewhat limited minutes, maybe sometimes bigger roles. We'll see that in Toronto. Thought that would be way too much. Held off on that. We just went with the injury news there. We will move now to position by position. I've been talking this whole time. We will get us started at point guard with Spike. Who are you looking at here?
So like you just mentioned, with all the injuries, we're going to be able to find a lot of value in a lot of places. So there's going to be certain spots that you can and want to spend up on. I'm not quite sure if point guard is that one, but sitting up there at the top is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's a little pricey, 9,500, but he has been playing a lot better. Gets a pretty decent matchup against the Nuggets. And if that game is going to stay close at all, it's going to have a lot to do with him. So that's someone I'm looking at. As you go down a little bit, you got Tyrese Halliburton sitting at 8,200, which I don't mind that at all, the way he's been playing. I think his last 4 games, the minimum he's put up is about 40 fantasy points. So, I mean, it's well warranted right now with all the injuries they have. And he's just seeing a ridiculous amount of minutes. So with the usage he gets, it should be another 40 to 50 points, and that's almost like a floor. Other than that, you can go down and interest me in some Ricky Rubio at 6,200. I think Darius Garland's a little too expensive at 92, so I like to play the next guy up there, and he's going to see plenty of time with all the players that are out with COVID protocols and such. As you go down more, I have no problems with Armani Brooks. I like him at 5,000. He's just going to be forced to play again, and then you go down more with Trae Young out. DeLon Wright should see a fair amount of minutes, and he's only 4,600. He's going to be forced into playing big minutes, I think, and that's kind of where I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, I think you more or less nailed it. You said most guys that I would have. I think the only thing that I disagree with you is that I don't necessarily think that Darius Garland's overpriced. I think he's priced appropriately more for tournaments, though. Almost 10,000, but obviously in the past he has flashed 60 fantasy point upside, so I have no issues with that. And I do like the matchup against Boston. Only main concern is that obviously, one, he hasn't really dominated Boston this season, especially for the near 10K price tag. And two, he isn't quite as good on the road as he is at home. So Garland is a very solid tournament option, I think. Drew Holiday is my preferred option up top. I know that Chris Middleton comes back. A lot of people probably think that it's going to hurt Holiday quite bad. Is he going to take 36 shot attempts again? No, obviously not. Even if Middleton didn't play, that wasn't going to happen again anyway. Like, you just don't consistently take 40 shots in a game. I don't care what NBA player you are, it doesn't happen. Holiday, though, does come with the triple-double upside, essentially, and obviously a lot of scoring potential, even with Middleton in. There's too much to go around, really, with Giannis still out. And Holiday's a guy that's going to completely take over, along with Middleton, who at small forward I will talk about most likely because I do really like him as well. I think you nailed Halliburton. Makes way too much sense. Rubio, really good. DeLon Wright, even Brooks, I don't have any issues really whatsoever with. I think as you continue down, though, you can get down to Kobe White. 32 minutes, looked healthy in his last game. 35 fantasy points in that. He's obviously a kid that can score in quite a hurry. That game was a complete blowout, and he played 32 minutes. Now, obviously, they get the matchup against Toronto, who has virtually nobody tonight. It's absolutely insane what has happened to their roster right now. So even in that type of a blowout, it seems as if White's minutes are relatively safe, especially because this isn't the second half of a back-to-back or anything. It's just the second game in 3 days. So I do think that Kobe White is one of the better salary relief options since truthfully, I have no idea why they didn't price him much more than slightly above 4K. That's pretty ridiculous. But yeah. I do think that it essentially outlines point guard. I don't think there's anyone else that I really would be looking too much into. But shifting over to shooting guard, who are you looking at here?
So I could save him for small forward, but there's a lot of stuff at small forward too. So Paul George is just coming back, getting that matchup against Sacramento, which we always attack Sacramento. They're just not good, especially with the players they have out on defense. I mean, his price is where it should be. You know, I mean, 10,900. And it's just a really ideal matchup. He's going to be the focal point, and you know you're going to have money to spend at some place. So you know I really like him. As you move down a little bit, Josh Giddey at 7,800 is someone else I am also interested in. Gets a matchup against the Nuggets. You know, and just like I said about SGA, you know he's going to be one of the reasons that game stays close as well. So it's an appropriate price tag, I think, but you know, I think it's flirting on the high side. But you know, I'm okay to take that shot in tournaments. You go down a little bit more. You got Buddy Hield there at 6,900, and just like we were talking about Halliburton, you just can't ignore the usage and the minutes right now with all their injuries. So you know that's someone I'm highly interested in, and if his shot is falling, just has massive upside, and he takes tons of shots. So you know that's stuff you look for. As you go down a little bit, Josh Christopher has been playing a lot more for the Houston Rockets with all the injuries and such, and COVID. 4,100 is kind of too cheap for him still, I think. If he's playing well and his shot is falling, you know he could get you 6, 7, 8 time value right there. And he'll get blowout run too if it comes to that. And then you can go a little bit more down, and Michael Mulder is just someone who really he's just really the price is too cheap for the minutes he's getting. And you know if his shot is falling, there's a lot of upside there at that price, and that's more or less where I'm looking at right there.
Yeah, I think you outlined a lot of really good options. I agree for the most part. I don't disagree with anyone that you said. I think that everyone that you said is absolutely viable in this type of game. There are a few other options that I would add. Plus, I'll just start here because it makes sense for the Mulder recommendation as well. I only think he's in play if Cole Anthony is out. And if Cole Anthony is out, I also would really like Gary Harris.
Yep.
He's taken on a much larger role with Anthony out. 34 and 35 fantasy points in his last 2 games, 36 minutes in both of them. Bogdanovic is only 4,700. I have to assume that he'll probably run a little bit of point for Atlanta. I was going back and forth between him and Kevin Huerter. The difference between the two is that I don't really think that Huerter can create his own shot nearly as well as Bogdanovic. So when you kind of look at it in that way, and you know that Trae Young isn't going to be there to create it for them, I just slightly prefer Bogdanovic for the lower price tag. Listed as probable, so I'm guessing he's going back to the normal minutes. I do think that at 4,500, Cedi Osman is a viable option, probably more in tournaments. I don't really trust him because if his shot isn't falling, he's not going to score well. But in tournaments, it does make sense. Svaya Michalek, really good option because Toronto doesn't have literally anybody. They're going to be playing guys. They're actually going to be playing some of the guys that they sign on the 10-day deal. A lot of these teams are signing players on the 10-day deal, so they have a rotation. If they want it, they don't really give them minutes. It seems like tonight, Toronto is actually going to have to play players that they signed on these 10 days deals. So Spy, I do think makes a very solid option. And then one guy that full disclosure at this point, I haven't decided on. I don't know what I want to do. I'm not necessarily sure if he gets more minutes, but if Lou Williams is going to play more minutes, he can score fantasy points in a hurry. He doesn't need more than realistically 15, 20 minutes to have a shot to easily beat his price tag. If he gets 25, 30 minutes, I mean, he's going to be probably one of the better point per dollar plays on the entire slate. So I'm not quite sure yet. I need to dig more into Atlanta's rotation, what I believe that they're going to do, specifically with Trae Young out, who's going to get minutes there. But Lou Williams is a name to lock away for the time being. Moving to small forward, we have Jason Tatum at the top, right above Paul George. But go ahead and outline the guys that you like here.
Yeah. You mentioned him earlier. Chris Middleton is coming back at 8,300. It's just a real smash spot, and I think most of that offense is going to be running through him and Drew Holiday. So I really don't think this game stays too close, but he'll be a big reason why. So I have no issues there. You go down a little bit, and I think he's one of the only players for the Raptors that's a starter, and he's coming back as OG Anunoby, 7,900. He's an easy plug and play here. He's going to get minutes. They don't really have enough players to bench him, even if it does become a blowout or when it becomes a blowout. So, and he's just coming back from injury too. So I'm sure they kind of want him to get his feet wet again, if you will. So I think that's a really good play right there. And he'll probably be very high owned, but for good reason. As you go down to stick with the Kings players, Harrison Barnes, 7,100. More or less the same reasons as Hield and Haliburton. He's just getting a ton of minutes, taking a ton of shots, and he's just going to be on the floor a lot. Go down a little bit there. You got Lou Dort sitting there at 6,300. I don't mind taking a shot on him here. He's kind of in a middle spot where I think he'll go overlooked. So I think he's a really good tournament option. And with his scoring upside and his defensive skills, he could definitely get you to a good 5 or 6 time value. Excuse me. Go down a little bit more. You got Chuma Okeke at 5,200. I still think that's a little cheap for what he can do, and obviously just going to be playing a lot of minutes as well. He's been doing really good, and he just really hasn't been priced up appropriately yet. Still, I don't think. You could go down a little further. Javonte Green for the Bulls at 4,300 with all the injuries that you listed for them, and the fact that this game's just not going to stay close. I think he can easily hit value there if his shot is falling and he stays out of foul trouble. Other than that, Jason Tatum at the top, yeah, he's intriguing too. You got to figure either him or Jaylen Brown are going to go off. It's just kind of a matter of which one. So I have no issues there either. But that's about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought you did well outlining the majority of it. I would add at the top Franz Wagner. More or less, if Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr. are out, Wagner obviously has, flashed the ability to completely take over a game. So I don't have any real issues with him. There aren't too many other options that I would really add here. I think you outlined the majority of players well, or we talked about them at shooting guard as well. The only guys that I would add here are 2 cheap guys. You have Yuta Watanabe. He's played 20 plus minutes in 3 straight. He scored 20 plus fantasy points in all 3 of those. He dropped 31 against Sacramento in 26 minutes. He does have versatility. He can score relatively quickly. He's only 4,000, and he gets a matchup against Chicago, who's really struggled against forwards throughout the entire season, both small and power. So I would like to kind of see where their rotation is at, who they're opting to start, and kind of what they're going to do. But Yuta Watanabe, I think, is way too cheap at 4,000. And then if you want to take a shot on someone like Cam Reddish, he's only 3,700, and realistically, Atlanta probably could be using his scoring without Trae Young. So I wouldn't be overly shocked if he gets a decent run. Big problem is I'm just not a huge Cam Reddish guy. I think that the upside's obviously there. But at the same time, I probably prefer Spy for $100 more. I prefer Watanabe for $300 more. I just do think that Cam Reddish is at least a viable option. So I did want to mention him here. Moving to power forward, you got some of the top guys completely out here. You have to decide what you want to do with DeMar DeRozan. He absolutely dominated the other night, but didn't play down the stretch at all. I think he ended at 31 minutes because the game just wasn't close whatsoever. Now he gets a matchup against Toronto, who has essentially nobody. So do you really believe that DeMar DeRozan gets the major minutes that he needs? And not to mention, he's up at 10-2 now. It's not like you're getting him cheap or anything like that. So kind of just take us through who you like at power forward, and start with whether you like DeMar DeRozan or not, because I actually would be very interested to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I kind of got the same stance as you. Like, I mean, he's in a good spot. He's been playing well, but how much does he play? I mean, like, I have a feeling, the Grizzlies a couple weeks ago had that ginormous blowout over. I can't remember who it was, but I feel like it's going to be a 40-point lead by halftime. So like, what's the point to bring him out there and maybe cause an injury or something like that? I definitely think if you want to take a shot at him in tournaments, he's going to come in low owned. I guarantee it. But I'm probably not going there, especially for that price. So Franz Wagner was someone I was going to mention here, but you already laid him out pretty well. Next on my list was John Collins, 7,300. You got no Clint Capella. And arguably, depending on if Wendell Carter plays or not, there's really no one who's going to stop him from scoring and getting rebounds, in my opinion. So I think that's a really good play right there. Should get a lot of run. Yeah. As you go down a little bit, Jayshawn Tate is 6,600. I don't mind playing him here at all. Are they going to put Middleton on him? Maybe not. But I think a lot of that attention goes to Wood if he plays, of course. So I think Tate would be a really good option, especially without Wood. But even with Wood, I would still take a shot on him. As you go down a little further, you got Chris Boucher at 5,100, and just going with the theme of there's just no one to play for the Raptors right now. He's going to see a lot of minutes. He should be able to score and get some rebounds too, so I have no problems there. If you go down a little more, you got Jordan Noira at 4,500. Middleton back kind of hurts him a little bit, but I mean, they're still missing Giannis, they're still missing Portis, they're still missing Lopez. So he's going to get a lot of run. He's able to hit that 3-point shot, which is huge, and if he gets hot, he's going to put up a lot of fantasy points. I think his last 2 games, he's put up over 40. So I have no issues with that. It's a clear misprice still, and I would like to take advantage of that. Other than that, I think I would probably look at Chimezie Metu at 5,800, still kind of cheap for his minutes he's getting. I mean, I guess that also depends on Holmes. So if Holmes is ruled out, that's a really good play. If he's ruled in, it's going to kind of eat into his minutes a little bit. But more or less, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, outlined to perfection. I think that's basically everything that I was thinking. The big guys that I feel like you kind of want here, the cheap guys. You want Chris Boucher. It's just ridiculously cheap for kind of what's happening. And if Kem Birch is ruled out, I believe he's questionable. If he's ruled out, I mean, Boucher could see 35 plus minutes. And we've all know that he comes with absurd upside when on the court, especially when there's no one else to really take his stuff. Yep. Obviously, Anunoby is going to be the top point scorer most likely, but Boucher can add essentially everything, and there's going to be plenty of shots to go around. Then the other one you already talked about, Jordan Noira, always been very good when he's getting the minutes. He's finally getting the minutes. Obviously, Milwaukee's still dealing with plenty of guys out. Some have come back, but I don't think that it's really going to take too much away from Noira. I do think that essentially outlines power forward. The only guy that I guess you can add, and I really don't like this, I don't want to be saying it, but I do want you to at least have one extremely cheap option if you need to go there for power forward, is Dean Wade, 34 and 22 minutes in his last 2 games, 32 and a half and 25 fantasy points in those games. The big problem with Dean Wade is that there is always the chance, and I know he's played well in his last 2 games. That's not really the expected for him. The expected for Dean Wade is generally about 30 minutes and 10 to 15 fantasy points. That's kind of what happens. He doesn't really do all that much. Obviously, he has been producing. He's actually taking, he took 7 and 8 shots in those games. He shot 3 of 5 from deep in both of those games, and it's jumped his 3-point percentage up to 36.5%, which actually isn't that bad. But yeah, he's not the guy that's really going to go out there and absolutely dominate, especially for Cleveland, who has a lot of different ways that they can score. But, the minutes should be there, and he's only 3,800, so it's not like you need him to drop 40 fantasy points or anything ridiculous. Not where I'm going. I can already tell you that Dean Wade's not really going to be on my radar. I just did want you guys to have someone super cheap here if you absolutely need it for the way your rosters are constructed and everything. Moving to center, though, I will keep this simple for the top of it. Nikolay Jokic is literally the best fantasy player in the NBA. He had a quote unquote an off game in his last game. He dropped 50 fantasy points. I believe that was also in 26 minutes. So him playing normal minutes, just makes sense. He gets the matchup against Oklahoma City, not scared whatsoever of that matchup. If you want to play Jokic, and it's not going to be difficult to get him into your lineups because of all the value tonight, plug him in. He's the best fantasy player. I don't care if he's playing the best team in the NBA against centers. I will always tell you, he is unguardable in the NBA. He has so much usage. He can contribute in multiple different ways. Just play the dude if you want to. Put him at 14,000 and I'll start considering not using the guy. Honestly. No, I would actually consider not using him, where he is now. But if you do like him, play him. He's not priced out because he can drop 70, 80 fantasy points. So I just wanted to get that off about Jokic at the top because, you don't really need to throw that much into him. So who else are you looking at center?
Yeah, besides Joker, there's almost no options at the top. They're all out. They're all out. Mm-hmm. The next one is who would be available there is Nikolay Vucevic, and just over 10,000, 10,100. Just not going there. Other than that, for me, the next one, and I think this is the most obvious one, is Kevin Love, 5,700. There's no Jared Allen. There's no Mobley. Your next biggest guy besides that is Dean Wade, who you already mentioned. So, I think Ed Davis was ruled out too. So Kevin Love is the only pretty much viable center there. So he's going to get a lot of minutes. And when he's on the court, he does produce well. I know he's, is a little aged. So, we'll see how many minutes he actually gets, but he's a fantastic option for that price. If you go down a little bit, you got Robert Williams coming back at 5,500. I have no issues there whatsoever. He'd be going up against Kevin Love, and he's not going to stop him. He should be able to get a lot of rebounds, blocks, and hopefully some points to add to it. Same team, Anis Freedom is at 5K, and Robert Williams is going to need a break at some point. Al Horford's still out. Grant Williams is still out, so I'm perfectly fine with playing him as well. You go down, you got DeMarcus Cousins at 4,400 for the Bucks. He's going to continue to see pretty big minutes as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. He's someone who can also hit the three occasionally as well. He's going to get a bunch of rebounds. There's double potential there. I guess if Christian Wood is ruled in, I have no issues playing him right there either. It should be a good matchup against Cousins, and I personally think Wood's going to win that matchup more times than not. Other than that, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher this. I asked you about it earlier. Onyeka Okongwu for the Hawks. Clint Capella's out. This guy's almost minimum price at 3,400. He's going to be forced into some kind of minutes. And he really only needs about 15 or 20 minutes to kind of hit value there. He can get rebounds in a hurry and put up points quickly too. And that's more or less where I'm looking at. It's a spend down position for me unless you're playing Joker. And yeah.
Yeah, I think the obvious top option is going to be Nikolay Jokic. No one I think is even really that close. I do have no problems with Vucevic if you want to use him because no one for Toronto is going to stop him. Problem is he's now up at 10-1. They really did a good job of pricing some of these quote unquote elite guys just specifically towards the matchups. They priced them up tonight, which is really good. Even Christian Wood at like 93 is a little expensive. If Wood is out, Alperen Sengun is 5,800. I have no problems really whatsoever with that. The only thing that I would say based on what you went with is that if Robert Williams is playing, I'm probably moving off Ennis Freedom. I think that he's viable if he gets 20 to 25 minutes. I think he can definitely beat the price tag. I just don't really want to bank on it with this many good salary relief options, really.
Yeah.
If Robert Williams is out, then Freedom becomes one of the best plays on the entire slate. Also, then you have Robin Lopez down there at 4,600. I think this is more if Wendell Carter Jr.'s out. I kind of need to decide what I would want to do if Wendell Carter Jr. plays, because realistically, they could just shift him over to center, give Robin Lopez some time off. I don't necessarily know if they do that or if they just run their normal rotation with Wendell Carter at power forward and just give a bunch of minutes again to Lopez. He's looked really good. He's performed well, looking quite versatile, and hasn't really struggled with the big minutes. So no problems with that. Also, if Kem Birch is in, no real issues at 4,500. That's a little bit too cheap. The last thing that I want to say is that I will more or less just be waiting for the Atlanta game to kind of announce what they're doing. If Onyeka Okongwu is starting, I do really like him at 3,400. Gorgie Dang starting, I also really like him at 3,100. Both of them can score fantasy points in a hurry. I think if you're looking on a per minute basis, Gorgie Dang is probably the better option between the two. I have been extremely high on Okongwu since he's been at USC. Really liked him, thought they were going to let John Collins walk to shove him into the power forward slot. I'm guessing his shot probably didn't develop as well as they wanted. Plus, John Collins looked really, really good last year, and they didn't have any problems paying him. But I do think at some point in time, Okongwu is going to really be a star. And just with the way specifically FanDuel is with blocks and steals being worth quite a bit, he does come with a lot of upside if they're going to give him big minutes. I just don't trust that they're going to at the moment. So whoever starts, I think their minutes are safer. Gorgie Dang, obviously, we know for years now in the NBA has been really good on a per minute basis. So if he's announced as a starter, he only needs like 15 minutes, honestly, to hit value at his price tag. But I think that he would be safer as a starter for 20, 25 minutes. And if that's the case, a really good play for 3,100.
And he's a little cheaper too. So that's nice. And, I actually looked that up for you. He's averaging over 1 DK point a minute when he's playing versus Okongwu, which is 0.9 points a minute, which it's not a huge difference, but when you talk about those extra minutes at that price, it could be huge. So
yep, no, completely agree with that. I think that about does it. We went through each of the 5 positions. I'm sure there's going to be some type of news tomorrow that kind of breaks up the slate a little bit more. We are waiting kind of on starting lineups though. So thanks for watching. If you enjoy it, go ahead, give us a thumbs up. Again, chatdfs.com if you want to get into our free Discord where we're kind of talking about everything. But that about does it for tonight. Good luck, everyone, and hopefully everyone wins big.